Declarations of interest. Other than previously disclosed, does anyone have any declarations of interest they would like to mention? I'm not seeing anything, so that's good. Right. Chair's remarks. I've already said Happy New Year. I would have wished everyone a happy Christmas at the last meeting, but it was delayed. And it was delayed, and that was the budget workshop, which is going to happen this afternoon at 1:30. At 1:30. So please do stick around for that, and that's a joint budget workshop along with members of the ONS committee. I wanted to also mention that I propose moving the meeting scheduled of TDOSC on the 20th of April, because I think we can all think of better things that we would rather do on the 20th of April to Monday, the 18th of May. If you are re-elected or you're not facing re-election, you will still be a member of this committee up until the board meeting of the AGM. I believe that's the constitution. Sure. So if you could put that in your diaries, the 18th of May, that would at 11 o'clock as normal. And just to let you know, there are two transport papers coming to board this week on Friday. One of them is on the Strategic Fleet Report, which we will be discussing later. The other is on the collaboration agreement between West Midlands Rail and the Department for Transport. And Lindsay will be sending a copy of that paper out to all members of TDOSC via email later on this week. Okay. Right, moving on to item 4, minutes of the 10th of November, pages 1 to 10. I will just go take them stage by stage. Does anyone have any factual accuracy issues from the minutes on the 10th of November? Not seeing anything. Does anyone have? Yes, Councillor Hyatt.
I would like to make the point yet again that, I mean, these are only really notes on it. They're notes of what took place. And in order to get a more detailed appraisal of what took place on November the 10th, you look at the actions. And yet again, it's possible to look at things that have been actions that aren't referred to or referenced or indicated at all in the main body of the text. And I think for transparency, you know, you should be able to read the notes, the minutes, and from what's in the minutes, you get an indication of what will follow. And you can't. That link isn't there logically. So I just want to flag it up yet again. Thank you.
And I think you're rather than taking this meeting up with those, you're going to email later some of the specific issues you're talking about, Councillor Hyatt. Is that the case?
I mean, yes, I can do.
Okay.
Could I raise an accuracy issue?
Could you use your mic, John, please?
Yes, sorry. It's the action note 6A. It's not an accent, it's an assent.
Yes.
I'm wondering what royal accent we're thinking about.
Yes. Six, and it's next to you, Sandy. Yes, no, that where your right hand is. Yes. Assent. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. In terms of anything matters arising from the minutes, Councillor Kane.
Thank you. May I request that the recommendations listed on paragraph 34 of the minutes regarding business cases be brought forward to the action list so that it's not forgotten. And my second query on the action list is to do with the 10th item, the red ratings, but we'll be discussing that in a later report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kay. And then moving on to yes, Councillor Hyatt.
And can I ask number 6, page 8, on the paper based one, page 12, if you're looking at it on your laptop. Please could I have the Wolverhampton Schemes Rebasing, please could that be sent again to me? I'm trying to access it and I can't access it on my laptop. I'm assuming that it was sent, but it's not coming up.
Right.
Search engines, and Jenny says it's been completed, and so it should have been sent to me as an email. I should mention.
No, could you pick that one up, please? This is 6A financial performance.
And
Okay.
it's all about the schemes and rebasing, particularly the further detail on the financial implications of underspend in the current year, whether this would have implications in subsequent years.
Yes, yes. So I think Jenny has moved on to a different role now. So Joe will take that on for you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Clements, I believe you wanted to come in.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Happy New Year, everybody. Yes, just my point was in relation to the action follow up at the end, where John has already pointed out the issue about the royal accent as instead of royal assent. But I'd asked for an update on the Bus Services Act and its implications for our franchising processes. But over Christmas and New Year, we've had a number of really encouraging announcements from the government of other transport policies. So I'd welcome a briefing on the new road safety strategy as well, please, particularly as it relates to powers for strategic transport authorities on pavement parking and the banning thereof. And I also, I'm very keen to see the update on the work on bus fares, because I'm very much aware of the fact that we've got the blanket £3 fare for single journeys, whereas in other places where I've travelled in the country there are still lower fares and hopper fares. And while we've again seen the great announcement of the freezing of rail fares on bus fares, I think we could well look to Liverpool and Manchester, which have retained £2 bus fares. But I think that some update on national developments on transport would be very helpful. And again, we've had the announcement about funding for road maintenance as well. So it would be good for the committee to be informed about that, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Clements. What I would say is that, as I understand it, in terms of bus fares, Liverpool and Manchester are lower because the mayor has used the regional mayor has used funding to actually subsidise that, and perhaps that could be a question during the budget workshop. Will be later on this afternoon. Okay. Anything else on the minutes or the action point? No, I've got one, and that's reference number 5, unexplained removal of bus shelters. And I've got in progress with it being designated to Pete Bond. What does in progress actually mean? Because it wasn't just myself, but also Councillor Hyatt and Councillor Singh from Wolverhampton who raised this.
If I may, Chair, I was coming on that, and apologies, Pete isn't here to join me today. So just on those points around the shelter requests, so they're all being looked into at the moment, and the councillors should be contacted directly once that has been investigated across those sites.
Okay, thank you. Well, as I'm one of those councillors, I will tell you whether it's done or not. Sandy will. Along with the other issue I've raised over Christmas, yes. Okay, so moving on to item agenda 5 then, the Safer Travel Legal Agreement. As most of you will be aware, this is headed up by Kerry, but Kerry is on annual leave. So we have Paul Franks, who I believe is doing the presentation today on the Safer Travel Legal Agreement. So Paul, all yours.
Morning, Chair. Thank you. Purpose of the attendance is obviously to request the support from this committee or to submit the papers to the designated officer group. I don't know if the screen can show the slide. If not, our current legal agreement expires on the 31st of March of this year, and the new legal agreement that we're seeking approval for will underpin the new strategy and run until March 2028. The main themes of our strategy to feel, stay and be safer on public transport are linked to mayoral and PCT priorities. On the original screen, the cost was circa 1.78 million. The revised figures on the updated cost is actually just over 2 million for the 3 years of the strategy and the partnership. So hopefully this has also been supported by relevant members on the engagement group. So I'm just seeking support from this group and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul. Councillor Kay has indicated.
Thanks, Chair. On the slide, one of these slides says that we're only looking for a 1-year agreement because of the uncertain financial picture. I wonder if you could elaborate on the uncertain financial picture, because I would have thought that Safer Travel would be a prioritised service that would be more or less moving for funding.
That refers to the previous year, so that expires in March 26. It was that year that there's the uncertainty about whether it was going to be extended beyond. We've now got that confirmation and certainty. That's why we're seeking the agreement till March 2028.
Previous government post.
Yeah.
Councillor Hyde.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask, looking at the figures, it's really noticeable that where there are conductors on, like in the metro system, people feel safer and there are a reduced number of incidents. Now we're looking at not having conductors on our metros. Will part of your budget be used to monitor the effect of not having conductors on our metro?
In terms of specifically, I would say no, but we have patrols on the metro and on all modes of transport, and the figures relate to all modes of transport. We ourselves are anticipating, because you're removing that capable guardian on the service, there's likely to be an increase in reporting, but until that capable guardian is removed, we won't know and be able to report back on that. But as and when there is a change seen, then we'd obviously report back to any committee that needed to see that information.
Can I ask, Chair, that we monitor that and ensure that that we do get the figures, because it's quite significant. I mean, you look countrywide, you can look at the countrywide safety figures, and where there's conductors present, incidents are reduced, people feel safer, increase. You could even track it to increase use, to be honest. It could be quite a significant thing, and I can appreciate why we're doing it. Financially, there is a need to. It's great if we move to like Salford, where everyone just takes a ticket before they get on board and everything. But I do think that it needs to be monitored carefully with respect to the safety of our passengers.
Absolutely agree, and I think this potentially is a role for Councillor Kay and his Meg in terms of passenger safety. So if the Safer Travel team could liaise with Councillor Kay as the Scrutiny champion, the Meg champion, I'd be very grateful for. Councillor Stanley and then Councillor Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, how many officers we've got now based in this building dealing with these matters for us outside on all modes of transport? I fully agree with what Councillor White's been saying. I use the tram myself, and I know what a wonderful job they do on there. People try to avoid paying the fares, and of course they do deal with them quite well, in my opinion. But I mean, the problem is we're not in the market to give people free travel, and I think it should be monitored probably more. And it'd be interesting to know how many officers there are based upstairs in room on 6th floor, but out working and looking at all modes of transport and where we've got difficulties for safer travel.
Thank you, Councillor. In terms of our transport safety officers, we have 13 that are out on all modes of transport. They're not just focused on the metro. Most of their working time is on the bus, because that's where most of our reports are on the bus. In terms of the policing team, the numbers, I haven't got those exact numbers to hand, and I don't want to misquote in this meeting. So that can be supplied afterwards in terms of the policing numbers. But I think we're one officer short from British Transport Police, but every other post is filled.
And of course, we do have revenue protection officers on the train employed by the train operating companies in addition. And I think this would be a good moment to thank Paul and the Safer Travel team for a query I sent in over the Christmas holiday, which Paul and his team have dealt with very efficiently. And I'd like to pass my personal thanks to Paul and the team. Councillor Clements.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Well, just thanks very much for the presentation, Paul, and strongly support these proposals. Because I really see the importance of the team. As Tim has said, over the busy periods like Christmas, but also in the wake of the terrible stabbing incident outside New Street in November. And I just wanted to say as well, it's a shame that Kerry Blakeman's not here for the meeting, but I wanted to congratulate him and the team on the coverage that they got on the BBC Radio 4 World at One programme shortly before Christmas. Again, that was an item about public's perception of safety or otherwise on public transport. Kerry was interviewed and some of the safer travel officers, and I thought it was a really good profile for the whole team. So congratulations on that. And if you could pass on my thanks to Kerry and everyone else who was involved in getting that coverage. Thank you.
I don't think you need to say anything, Paul. So if there's no one else indicating to speak, the last bullet point was to request support from TDOS prior to designated sign-off. I would like to think we could fully support this briefing note for sign-off. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Paul, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6, which is the integrated settlement 6-month report. And the responsible director is Sandeep.
Thank you, Chair. I
Yes.
will invite Carl to
Carl,
go through the paper.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, as the title says, we're now in the very first year of our integrated settlement. And this is an update on the 6-monthly progress report of that first year. So in this first year, we only have a narrow amount of funding for transport included. So we're not yet in the multi-year settlement, which will happen from next financial year, which will cover the majority of our transport funding. So in this first year, we're only looking at a bus revenue funding, EV revenue funding, and active travel capital and revenue. And as part of the agreement we have with central government, we have to do a 6-monthly progress report and an annual progress report. And there are 10 indicators overall across the integrated settlement, of which 2 relate to transport. And the 2 for transport are healthier and greener transport in the combined authority area. And this covers the active travel and EV charging and improved public transport, especially bus services. And these are the 2 that we'll talk about briefly today. As I say, overall, there are 10 indicators, and the 8 non-transport indicators were picked up at the ONS committee in this building last week. So for the true transport indicators, we have one of those is green, which is healthy and green transport in the combined authority area. And we have one which is amber, so one of only 2 amber indicators, which is around public transport. And the indicators within that, which mean this one is amber, are around not only bus patronage, but also the bus mode share. So what's mode share of bus compared to other modes that we use in the West Midlands, and bus reliability. What I would say is there's no targets for this 6-monthly report. It's purely an updating report back to government. We have a number of actions, as you all know well, in this committee that we're taking on improving bus reliability, bus patronage, and bus passenger satisfaction. So whether that's the work we're doing on franchising or sprint, or all of the marketing campaigns. I think you'll hear later that bus patronage is probably actually not quite as positive as set out in this report, and that will be something we need to look at and monitor as we go forward to the end of this period. I suppose the final thing I will say, this is the kind of entree, I suppose, to the 3-year settlement, when much more significant transport funding will be included from 26-27 onwards. And within that 3-year period, there'll be a much more significant range of indicators that cover things like highways maintenance, road safety, all of the things that aren't currently in this single year period. So that's where we are at the moment. We will obviously come back once the final year report has been completed, and we will keep monitoring these indicators, and hopefully they will both be green by the end of that period, although I would highlight that there are still some risks around the public transport indicator, and it may well be amber by the time we finish the end of the year. I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Councillor Hyde.
Thank you. You just said that there aren't any targets, but I'm looking at Annex 1, which is outcome in West Midlands Combined Authority, local transport, outcome indicators, baseline target, web source. What am I looking at then if I'm not looking at your targets framework?
Yes, there are no targets for the 6-month reporting period. which is what this report covers, but there are targets for the full year. So the targets in your appendix cover that full first year of the integrated settlement. This is the 6 months. How are we getting on towards those? So we will have to come back and report on those targets at the end of the financial year.
Don't you want to know how, can I check
Yes.
this? Don't you want to know how you're progressing towards your targets? How aren't you monitoring your progress, and couldn't you report if you where you are?
Yes, that's what's detailed in this report. So the EV and active travel is green at the moment based on the data that we have. And this is where the improved public transport one is amber based on where we are at the moment. So we're constantly monitoring them. Some of the things relate better to annual publications of data. So things like bus patronage, we obviously look at every quarter, but really works better at an annual level to get an understanding. It's not related to seasonality, summer periods when schools are back. So yes, monitoring is taking place. This report shows on a kind of a RAG rating where we are against those two outcomes, and we'll continue to monitor and report back on those.
Councillor Hyatt.
So under means that you're not there yet, but you're hoping to be there, so we don't worry. So then why then is there no targets, baselines for your active travel? Why with no annual targets set for that?
So in this first year of the integrated settlement, so this was when we had a 1 year spend and review period, so a very small amount of funding comparatively for active travel. And the capital measures, what we agreed with government is most of that money will be spent in the second year. It won't be spent in the first year. So we didn't have to set a target for active travel for the first year. Once we're getting to the 3-year integrated settlement period, up to broadly 2029, there will be a target expected on active travel. But for year one, very narrow amount of funding. It doesn't include our CRSTS program, the big projects that we're doing for active travel. So it's only right that we're monitored against the money that we're being passported by government and not everything else. So for this first 1 year period, the outcomes for active travel are around the delivery of business cases, not actual mode share. That will change when we move into a 3-year settlement.
Okay. The one question I wanted to ask is that on page 20, it says 75% of active travel schemes have completed preliminary design. Recognising we need to think strategically, but also members are very interested in detail. Could you circulate what active travel schemes mentioned on page 20 have completed preliminary design? What schemes they are and where they're located?
Yes, we can get those sent round, and they relate to the programme business case that went to board just before Christmas. So we have that information available.
Yes, if you could circulate it to all members, I'd be very grateful. Councillor Kane. Councillor Kane.
I've got 3 questions loosely related to table 1 on page 15. The first is on electric vehicle infrastructure. I've read on social media horror stories of people being paid charged up to £1 a kilowatt for public charging, which converts to about 30 pence a mile, which is about 2.5 times more expensive than running a diesel car. We really need to get public charging rates down to 40 pence a kilowatt to be competitive with ICE car before the additional tax which the Chancellor imposed in the latest budget. So we need to get it down by another 12 pence a kilowatt to bring a level playing field between EVs and ICE cars. My concern is that we're wasting a lot of money on public infrastructure, which until we can get the economics right, is going to be wasted money.
I think there are some good programs, mixed programs of EV charging moving forward across the West Midlands. So different approaches being taken in different areas. Some new money coming forward for things like cross pavement channels. so that people can charge in their own home when they don't have a dedicated parking space in a safe way. And that's one of the ways, majority of charging does take place on people's residences. And obviously there is occasionally a need for people to charge in the public environment. Most of the time when we provide EV charging funding, it is a very small proportion of the total cost of that infrastructure. So we don't have enough leverage about what the final cost of the supply is, but overall we pay a small proportion of the total cost of infrastructure to get those facilities in place. Overall, I do agree, if we want more people to use EV charging, we need to make the infrastructure accessible to people and affordable, and that is one of the things that we look at in our EV charging strategy, and we continue to work with the private sector to do that. It is obviously an important role that we play there. Most of these providers, they are private providers. We do not have the ability to provide those services ourselves, and again that would change the risk profile that we decide to take currently and where we invest. But I think it's a good point and something we can continue to look at.
Thank you. Regarding the annual targets referred to in the last sentence of the table, I had a look at the Integrated Settlement Outcomes Framework 25-26 report, which is linked at the bottom of this item. And I find that in most cases, there is no 6-month data. So 9 months into the year, we're kind of flying blind with no data. Is that a fair assessment?
On some of the areas, yes, that is it is the case, and many of the data sets, DFT and government prefer us to use national data sets, so they have a consistent way of looking at different areas across the country. So the benefit in that to be able to compare the West Midlands with Manchester, with Yorkshire and so on. Equally, some of those data sets don't come out as frequently as we would like. So you have to trade off the balance between, do you want data that is consistent across the country and reporting on a more frequent basis. As we get to, I think, later on the agenda, we do have our own ways of capturing data. So we don't always have to rely on nationally available data. I also think, kind of to the point earlier, having a 1-year settlement is quite tricky. And as we move into a 3-year settlement period, that allows the trajectory to really get a much more thorough view on progress. And also we won't be looking at such a narrow range of things that we're looking at.
Thanks.
Okay. And just a last quick one from me, because I don't think anyone else has indicated to speak. In terms of the EV charging, where are we in terms of the provision of EV charging at our park and ride estate?
I'm not an expert on this one. I do not own an EV, but I'm aware that's part of the business case that's currently being put together for EV charging, which I think is in that outline business case stage. That does include provision for a number of sites within the West Midlands Park and Ride portfolio to be covered by funding that's in CRSDS. So I will ask Andy Page, who's the EV lead, to get an update for us on that. But I believe it is working its way through the business case process.
Yes, because some of our park and ride estate already have EV charging points, as I understand it. Well, not as I understand it. I see them when I park my park and ride and travel in on train. Okay. So if there's no one else who's indicated to speak, can we agree the recommendations on item 6? Excellent. Right. So move on to item 7, which is the capital performance report. The report author is Jenny, but as I said, Jenny has moved on. So Joe Short is here to present the report. Joe, welcome.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. I'm here to report on the capital programme performance. This report is supplemented by a number of dashboards and also a presentation slide deck, which you've hopefully had visibility of, showing some of the works that have recently been completed as well. So in terms of overall summary, we continue to maintain an amber status, and we think this is a fair reflection of the complexity of the value and types of projects that we're delivering across the region. We've got increased deliverability across our local authority partners, and we're steadily seeing that increase further as we head towards the March 2027 deadline, and we're seeing more digestible information and better reporting coming forward as well. So we're hopefully, as we move forward, you'll start to see more and more detail coming in this report by local authority area, as well as TFWM delivery projects as well. In terms of active travel, we continue to maintain amber status also. We've got strong progress across the recent quarter, and we're seeing clear alignment with some of the active travel schemes that are being delivered across the West Midlands. A number of active travel funding agreements have now been signed, and all local authorities are in receipt of those funding agreements as well. In terms of CRSTS, we've got a total spend to date of £512 million, with 178 million of that achieved in the last quarter from the 30th, to the 30th of September 2025. This is a doubling of spend from the previous quarter, and it really does reflect the pace of delivery of things. Now we've got a lot of stuff out on site, either coming to a conclusion or really deep in delivery as well. Couple of key things to report on is the conclusion of the Rosewell and LGA peer review, which I think we'll have reports going forward on that in the future. Excuse me. We've got the construction works on the 5 railway stations. So the 2 Walsall stations and the 3 Birmingham stations are completed, and we'll be looking to enter into service and operate trains as soon as possible there. And we've also made good progress on Birmingham East Side, Wednesbury Riley Hill and Dudley Interchange, where we're seeing great progress with the steel frame and the construction works, which you'll see photos of in the pack. Local authority teams, Birmingham City Council have commenced their city centre active travel works, and Coventry have started their Humber Road scheme. There's some photos of some of the completed works in the pack as well as Solihull and doing their A45 Birmingham Stamson full business case now being approved. In terms of how we move forward, with Phil, who's my colleague down the bottom there, is now the CRSTS programme lead supporting our local authority partners, and he is working really closely with all of your transport officers, transport and highways teams, in terms of making sure we can offer programme support and proper reporting in order to be able to support the teams as best as possible. So I think that covers most things. So happy to take any questions.
Yes, Councillor Hyatt.
Thank you, Chair. I asked our transport lead in Wolverhampton about this, and one of the comments with reference to the Capital Transport Performance Report was, we continue to wait for grant resolution from Wolverhampton. Now let's put this in context. Well, over a year ago now, my MEG was told from our transport officer that the grant agreements aren't being processed by the legal department quick enough, resulting in delays of over 12 months. Anshaw said that she tried to speed things up by having the grant agreement form started when the requests were being considered. When our ambassador, Becky, was appointed as an ambassador for active travel, one of the first things she did was to take the team to Greater Manchester to say, this is how they do it. You can copy it. You don't even have to make up the funds, the forms yourself to speed the process along. Just copy what they do in Greater Manchester. It is shocking that over a year from when this problem was flagged up, I have now got our lead in transport in Wolverhampton saying we continue to wait for grant agreement resolution. Every time you hold up an active travel project, it costs more money. Every time there is a delay, we can do less with the money that we're given. I think it's shocking that that's a comment that's being made at council level, and I really hope that people will be able to tell me we are employing more people, we are altering the way that we're doing it, we are going to, we're speeding things up, because it shouldn't be happening, not when I flagged it up well over a year ago in the MEG, and it was widely reported by all the transport officers from all the local authorities too. This is not just Wolverhampton specific. If it's affecting us, it could be affecting other councils too. And the second thing that I want to mention is that the Metro Progress Report doesn't cover Wolverhampton, but it's worth noting that although the trams are operating at all the steps, capital work remains incomplete. So that means some of the, you're not quite showing us all the picture necessarily, because that wasn't mentioned in the report. So if you haven't mentioned that, how complete is the picture that you're sharing with us? I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm saying it as a constructive criticism, potentially, because we need to know what we're looking at, because we haven't got context. All we've ever got as councillors is what you choose to share with us, what you choose to, to give us, really. And it's a difficult role because we want you to be the best that you can be. Our residents depend on you being the best that you can be. And at the minute, certainly on the grant funding, any change has been glacial. It's been too slow, really.
I'm going to ask Sandy to pick up certainly on the first point, and then another officer perhaps could pick up on the second point, and Joe's indicating she'd pick up on the Wolverhampton Metro point. Sandy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor. I'll be honest, yes, we have had a number of issues relating to getting grant agreements done, but I'd also like to think we've put a lot of effort in trying to address those issues going forwards. They are a fundamental part of what allows our local authorities to deliver. I just want to pick up a couple of actions. It's not just around the resourcing, but it is to try and move towards a more standardised grant agreement, so there isn't the need to keep on engaging significantly with legal teams, both at the combined authority and at local authorities, in terms of moving those forwards, and that is pretty much there or thereabouts. We do keep a track on legal agreements and where they are, and I don't have all the information to hand, but if there is something that's been outstanding for 12 months, I would like to know, because we do have a register of all the legal agreements and where they are at and who they are with. We often find ourselves being held responsible for them when they are, in a number of cases that I've seen recently, back with the local authority for either signing or for reviewing further comments that have come back. So I don't want to turn it into a bit of a finger pointing exercise. I do know there have been issues and challenges, and we are working through that. I will also highlight the work that we are doing as part of the Rosewell review. And the fourth objective as part of the Rosewell review is to look at our systems and processes. And that takes into account the entire spectrum of early stage scheme development and business cases right through to the end process of legal agreements, and what recommendations are coming out of that Rosewell review to help make that as efficient and as effective as possible. And your point well made around what is done in Manchester. Again, there has been some benchmarking with other mayoral strategic authorities up and down the country to help with that, with some of those emerging recommendations, which hopefully we should have in the next few weeks as well.
Supplementary on that point, and then I've called Joe in to talk about the Metro.
Thank you so much. Can we turn this round? Instead of me asking for it again and again and again and again, how about you tell me when it's done? I would love for you to come back here and say, this is what we've done. We've changed it. We reckon it's going to take this long roundabout, give or take. This is what we've done to improve things. And that would be really great, because, me asking all the time, me flagging it up, and it has been over 12 months. Come May, it could be 2 years, won't it? Just after May. And it's real. It's not anything I've made up. This is very, very real, and the consequences are very, very real. Please let us know when it's done.
If I may, Chair, just to come back on that, absolutely, there will be the outcomes of the Rosewell review, as well as the other system and process improvements that we will be implementing, which we're more than happy to share with this committee and you individually as well.
Thank you, Sandy. Joe, and the Metro.
Thank you, Councillor Hyatt, for the question, and zero apologies. We just haven't reported it Wolverhampton, and I am very aware of the things that we've got outstanding in Wolverhampton. I think because we've got trams running, the smaller elements of it have been lost in the report, but we'll make sure they get reported next time and then captured in there.
Okay. The next person that I've got is Councillor Kay, and then it'll be Councillor Clements.
Yeah, on the dashboard, we've got a column of greens against budget, and I don't think that is true. We've seen figures on the budget where various projects are inside their annual budget, but they are behind when you come to measure budget against the milestones achieved. And I think that we are achieving budget only because we're behind on schedule. And I think that if that column showed us budget against the milestones achieved, then we would be looking at yellows and reds on there. Is that a fair assessment?
I think just to put some clarity on it, we know that what we, for example, wanted to spend on rail package 2 and the Camp Hill line, we actually had to increase the budget substantially in order to deliver the scheme. And I think that's one element of what Councillor Kay is talking about in terms of the rag rating with the original budget rather than the rephased budget. Go.
I think that's a fair point. I think these three dots are reflective of the budget where we stand now. I think we could look at how we, looking at Phil really, we could look at how we can show that differently in terms of how it's tracked against the original budget. I think we've done a lot of work to change how we cost the original budgets in the last couple of years and make sure that we've got a really high level robust cost estimate now. And I think that's been a significant change into the way that we operate as well going forward. So but we could look at how we could perhaps report that. Perhaps I could just bring Phil in and say that's okay, Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, so the reason that those budgets, the local authorities and the CA show with the green is that we carried out a rebaselining exercise to match the spends, the budget for the schemes by expected progress by March 2027. So if you recall, there was a reduction rephasing to 162 million across some schemes, which reflect Garrett's view of the progress that has been made, and the budget was adjusted to achieve that by March 2027. So as we move into the next quarter and track progress against baseline, if we see variance in those, they will be reflected in updated status.
Supplementary, Councillor Kay?
Yes, please. On the previous two occasions at least, when we've seen this dashboard, I've asked for more granularity on the Transport for West Midland projects, which are all lumped into a single line of the dashboard. In fact, this is an item which is on our action notes, and yet this does not seem to be actioned. There are almost no numbers at all in this report. Now, reg ratings are very good for drawing members' attentions to areas where there may be concern. But in order to fulfil our task of oversight and scrutiny, we actually need to understand the numbers. We need to understand when budgets have been increased and all the other factors that affect this report. And I feel actually, because we've been pressing on this issue for so long, we should see such a revised report before the next meeting, and again when it comes to the next formal TDOS, that we should have a much fuller report containing high-level data that will allow us to understand a true and fair view of what the position is. Thank you.
And just to come in on that, I think we obviously have to think more strategically as we're an ONS of a strategic authority, but it's finding that happy medium where members have sufficient detail to actually be able to perform the functions of ONS as outlined by Councillor Kay, rather than too much detail but that gets lost in the weeds, but not too much high-level strategy. So it's finding that happy balance, that happy medium, which I don't think we've quite got yet. Jo.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll take that on board and have it. We were reporting at a portfolio level at the moment. Phil and I will take a look and perhaps there'll be a lot. I'm hesitating a little bit because there'll be a lot of information. So it's how we best give all of that information without bombarding you with pages and pages of project reporting as well. So we'll do some work on that, bring a different version, more detail for the next meeting.
Because not just for us, but any member of the public that online can look at these reports and have a better sense with details of schemes, numbers, but at a high level, rather than, as you say, the detailed project reports, which would be both time intensive and lose everyone in the granular detail. As I say, it's very much finding about having the numbers. Councillor Clements.
Chair, I think my question is probably more relevant for the strategic operations report. I have some questions about when the Camp Hill and Willenhall and Darlaston stations are actually going to come into operation, but I'll hold that over until later in the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions pertaining to Dudley, as you can well imagine. First one up is the interchange. The bus station, as it was formerly, has been closed now for quite a number of years. It's caused an awful lot of problem with disruption with buses around the town. We've lost an awful lot of traders. The market is more or less depleted now, apart from about half a dozen traders still left. It's having a devastating effect on the businesses in Dudley, getting in and out of the town in general. And the bus station has got the steelwork up, yes, but there's no completion date for it. That's the main thing. That's what people are asking. How much longer have we got to put up with this nonsense we've got up for the last 4 years? And I said, I'll do my best if I can find out for you. Now, looking through this report, it does also mention the metro, the line from Wensbury to Brierley Hill. Well, we know that's not going to take place in what's scheduled on here, but presumably as far as Dudley, if you can make your mind up what piece of track remain and what is dug up and put back down again, it's costing an awful lot of money. People are criticising now the fact that what a huge waste it is, and we're seeing nothing for it other than the loss of trade in the town. Now, I'm rather concerned about this. Now, one of the questions going to is looking at the diagram in here, you are suggesting or saying, whichever it may be the case, that the metro will be up and running in the first quarter of this year. So you've got 3 months. So can you assure me that according to this report, whether the metro will be running in the next 3 months or will it be put off again for another 3 months or another 6 months? But my main concern now is the state of the bus station. Really speaking, we need to get act together. It's costing us a lot of money to do the job. So let's try to get some completion date for it. So I can say to the good residents of Dudley, this is when the bus station is going to, or interchange, is going to open. It's just keeping on all the while. Now, can I just finish, please? Just one of the other things I need to mention. Work has now started to burn trees, which is now having an even worse devastating effect on the town of getting in and out of Dudley. So we've got 3 issues going on all at the same time, which is just the traders out of business.
That's a very fair question about the cumulative effect of both of the Dudley interchange, the metro, and the burn tree ironworks all happening simultaneously. Joe.
Thank you, Councillor, for those questions. In terms of the interchange, the dates are all on the capital delivery roadmap that's in the pack. So construction complete is due at the end of Q2 this year, 2026. So at the end of Q2, so summer effectively, and that's the construction complete for Dudley interchange. Likewise with Wensbury Brierley Hill, the majority of works for the metro lines are actually construction complete. The next step now is obviously testing and commissioning to make sure that it's safe to operate. And then, of course, we have to train all of those drivers to be able to provide extra resource. You know that the some of those conductors will be drivers, so they will be moving on, and we need to go through that period of training to do that before we can. I cannot sit here and promise you that we will be opening Wensbury Brierley Hill at the end of the quarter. But what I can assure you is that we will open it when it is safe, to do so, and that we have the adequate number of drivers in place to do that. And it's really important that that driver training is done thoroughly and to time as well. And in terms of Burnt Tree, sorry, that's a Dudley project, so I can't really comment from the TFWM perspective on the delivery approach to that.
I think it's the cumulative effect
Oh, absolutely.
and the fact that I believe the Combined Authority has key route network responsibilities.
Correct.
Correct?
If I may, Chair, Claire, from a network resilience perspective, do we know if the team's been involved with
Yeah.
monitoring?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the network resilience team, which is the travel demand management team, are involved in Burnt Tree. And they've got a mitigation plan to, I guess, make the best of the situation, given that, as you point out, it is cumulative impacts of the three schemes all going at the same time. But we are working on it.
I think Councillor Kettle wants to come in on this, and then I've called Councillor Lau. Councillor Kettle.
I've just asked the question concerning the Wednesbury Bradley Hills Metro. Why was it not anticipated that the training and the people would be required? We were told this training would take place last summer. It hasn't happened. We're going 6 months on. It still hasn't happened. We've got £550 million worth of public money standing idle. Come off it. When's it going to be working? That's what we're getting off from the grassroots. That's what we're getting off the people in the streets. When is this thing ever going to work? You know, you can understand the frustration.
The reason it's not, well, we haven't done the training already is because we had issues with the construction. I think you've probably been made visible about the issues at Middle Meadow that we had previously. We had some structural issues with the Victorian architecture, so that caused a delay to the construction. So the construction was delayed, now complete. But you can't start the training until you've done the construction. It's as simple as that. So we've been on site. We've tamped the track. So that's when you lay in the track and making sure it's correct. And testing and commissioning. So getting test trams out there will be starting very soon. But all of those are steps that we have to go through before we can get sign off from the Office of Road and Rail. And this is all about health and safety, making sure that we've got the correct sign off from the right departments. But I completely understand your frustration, but we couldn't move the training forward any further until we got the construction issues completed.
Is it on this issue, Councillor Davis? Okay. Before I call Councillor Davis in, because we're on the Metro, we do have our facility at Wednesbury. They do have training simulators at Wednesbury, because I've been on one myself. It might well be worth, after this meeting, speaking to the Sandwell and Dudley councillors, inviting them to the Wednesbury depot, where the intersection actually happens with line 1 anyway, showing them the training simulators where we are doing, I would hope, some level of training in advance of the works and getting potential drivers to understand the route. I understand that they obviously have to drive in real time on the actual real track, and that you can't just do it by simulator alone. But I think it'd be very instructive for both Sandwell and Dudley councillors to actually be invited to that depot and actually be on site. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. It's actually quite a similar question. So when you're training someone, if I do an analogy with an airline, for example, they will train you to fly a plane and then they will adapt you to train to fly the specific plane you're going to be on. Is it not possible for us to do some training on the existing lines we've got and then do the final stage of training for that specific line that they've got to know? Why do we have to wait until the line's completely completed before beginning the training? As Councillor Hopewell said about simulators and existing lines, could we not begin that training at an earlier stage?
Thank you. So yes, is the answer. So we are doing virtual with MML are doing the virtual training with some of the drivers, but a key part of this is buy before you board going live. So the new ticketing system. So buy before you board releases the conductors, which releases people for training. So it's like a roadmap in the move towards entry into service, really. So I must stress with the training, this is really important. We are going from a single line to a more complex network where the drivers will have to make different decisions. They'll have to use the Delta junction. This is more complex. So the importance of getting the training right and getting it operating safely is the most important thing for Midland Metro Limited and for us when we do hand over into service to them as well. So
supplementary, Councillor Davis.
Thank you. So is it the construction of the line or the construction of the buy before you board infrastructure, or both, that we're waiting for before this training begins?
Waiting for buy before you board. The line is, other than the odd snagging around the edges, the line is complete. We've tamped the line and we'll be testing test trams out there shortly. We need buy before you board to release the conductor so that we can move forward. But there's still, before you go into training, I really must stress this because it's important. Before we go into training, there's a period of testing and commissioning that we do where we pick up faults with the track. So we might pick up that the signal does not operate properly. We might pick up that the track sensors aren't working. And that's an important part before we put any drivers on there for training. And that is a period, that is a window that's an important part as well. We must get through that before we start putting new drivers out.
Okay, but as I say, we could try and expedite a site visit to the Wentbury depot, where the Delta junction actually is. I think that'd be very helpful for the Dudley and some of our councillors present. I know Councillor Lau has been very patient. I'm going to call Councillor Lau.
Thank you. See, I welcome the progress being made on the major capital projects. On the particularly my question should be new railway stations, and particularly the Willenhall and Darlington service. And actually, the ongoing issue that these services won't be fully at Walsall, and I'd like to know the progress on being made on that. And I think it's vital that on the new service, Walsall does get connected up.
And if we were going to be talking about rail packages 1 and 2, perhaps we could incorporate Councillor Clem's question about when the package 2 stations will actually be in operation.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor. I'll let Joe come in on the sort of the overall programme and the progress that's been made against the new stations. But you're absolutely right. With that significant investment in those railway stations, we want to make sure we've got the right level of services that connect parts of that country, particularly Walsall, to that route and those new stations. We have been engaging significantly with Network Rail and the department around how we make sure we can find the funding to do that in the right way. So that is an ongoing conversation that the Mayor has now picked up with Lord Hendy to make sure that that case can be made for in the best way possible. It's not just about pushing government to make the decision, but it's also about making sure we've got the right evidence to show the benefits that stem from that, which helps with that overall funding of that additional service. So there is progress being made. We hope we can get an outcome from that fairly soon.
Joe?
Thank you for the questions about rail stations. At the moment, we don't have a date set in stone, but what I'm pleased to say is that construction is complete and that we are going through the process of entry into service with Network Rail, West Midlands Trains. We've got test trains on site. We're training the conductors. Public Rail and the Section 278 works are all done as well. So I think we will be imminently announcing a date. I'm trying to get my words right, but I think it will be within the next couple of months.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joe. Councillor Carrots.
Thank you. I would like to raise, with reference to members' concerns about projects which are overrunning and causing disruption in the community. The Green Book requires that project business cases assess the economic impact of projects from day one through to 60 years after the project has been started. and that business case should assess the initial disruption caused by the building works and optimism bias, which is perhaps doesn't think that projects are going to overrun. And I believe that performance against business cases would be a useful addition to this dashboard. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think any other questions? I don't see anyone indicating to speak. So can we agree the recommendations on item 7 then? That's agreed?
Yeah.
Excellent. Item 8 is a presentation by Claire on transport operational performance. Welcome, Claire. Away you go.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year, everyone. Just for your reference, I am doing this on behalf of Mark Corbyn, whose job I am seconded into at the moment. So here is the strategic ops dashboard. The dates in comparison are Q2 of 25-26. So July to September of last year, compared with the same period of the previous year. So first of all, we've got the patronage data. So as you can see, bus patronage has declined between these periods. And we think that this is largely due to the change in the national bus fare cap, which has resulted in an increase in the single fares from £2. That was until December 24. It increased to £3 from January 25, as already referenced today. We are, though, continuing to see an increase in passengers using the ENC scheme, the concessionary scheme. These people are less price sensitive. So between these two periods, we've also seen a reduction in the overall commercial bus network as a result of operators seeking to reduce the impacts of increasing costs and reduced revenue. And across the region, bus journey times are increasing due to the impact of worsening congestion. So we continue to provide grants to prevent significant and detrimental bus service cuts during the transition to the franchised bus network. And the associated terms and conditions for that grant include a commitment to the fares review mechanism to seek and prevent above inflation fares increases as we move forward. We are also in the process of delivering bus priority capital schemes, as you're aware, to improve journey times and other measures to improve customer satisfaction. And we will look to use bus reform to tackle this decline in bus usage. So moving on to rail. So rail has seen growth, and that is 5.45% compares with the national average of a 7% growth. But we're still seeing below COVID levels. But we do have some big variances between different stations across the region. Commuter stations remain behind stations with a wider mix of users, including leisure users. So Snow Hill and Cross City are still operating at lower frequency than pre-COVID. New Street remains the busiest station in the region and is the busiest station outside of London. So we see there 36.6 million entries and exits plus 5.6 million people interchanging. And there are some big stations now back to pre-COVID levels. So as an example, Moor Street and Wolverhampton both seeing those positive levels. And University has been picked out as being up 23% year on year and is nearly back to pre-COVID levels as well, despite the reduced train service. Chase Line are showing strong growth linked to service improvements. Bloxwich and Bloxwich North are more than double pre-COVID usage. And 5 of the 10 busiest flows outside of London are actually here in the West Midlands. So we've seen New Street to Coventry, New Street to Wolverhampton, New Street to Selly Oak, New Street to University, and International to New Street as being in those top stations across the country. Moving on to tram, so Metro performance indicators reported 8.3 million journeys in 23-24. That exceeded 2019 levels, with the reasons including the earlier city centre extension through to West Side to Edgbaston and the Wolverhampton station extension as well. So West Midlands on demand, formerly Ring and Ride, averaging slightly between these periods, as you can see there. This is largely due to the reduced performance of the service in Q2 of 2026. You will recall we had driver shortages and reduced reliability from increasing congestion. And the impact on passenger satisfaction was limited during that time due to the free nature of the service. Very recently, so the 1st of December 25, we have mobilised 2 new operators to the service, and this has initially been with reduced capacity, which will gradually increase as they become settled into delivering the service. So that new service will also include the introduction of the new fully accessible vehicles, got mixed size, fleet, a full rebrand, service enhancements, and that leads to improved efficiency and eventually to grow that patronage. We've seen positive increase on e-scooters. You can see there. We've had some improvements to the parking locations put in over that period of time. We've seen a slight reduction in cycle hire journeys, but generally largely comparable with the year before. And as per previous updates, the combined e-bike and e-scooter scheme is being resecured. So in terms of customer satisfaction measures, a variety have been provided here as requested. So some of the reasons behind some of the customer satisfaction include cancellations on local rail operators, West Midlands Railway, have reduced over this period, and improvements in train crew availability, a key factor. Improved perception of the value for money on rail, likely linked to the better reliability and punctuality of the service, with customers feeling that they are getting the service that they pay for. Over on Metro, publicity and construction milestones have raised awareness and confidence of the Metro, and TFWM comms have indicated space in the ground, phase openings, journey time benefits, and these are typically linked to raising demand and awareness ahead of the openings. We have continued to position the tram as central to a much larger extension, so that keeps the Metro in the news and improves the reliability and future reach. And the Edgbaston Hagley Road extension opened July 22, and tram priority and camera enforcement from December 24 improved the reliability, reducing general traffic intrusion into the tram and bus lane. Metro fares saw a below inflation rise in April 25, and operators emphasise small, well communicated increases often don't suppress demand when service quality is strong. And as we've just mentioned, the new ticket machines and the rollout of the validators for tap-in, tap-out simplify the purchase, which typically lifts patronage even before the full launch, as customers see the network modern. Okay, oh, sorry, let's go back there. So on the highways, we provided some highway satisfaction. Now you'll see there is a quite significant increase in customer satisfaction, which there are no actual apparent reasons for. The number of raised street work permits in this time was higher than those in the period of the year before, and that would have resulted in an increase on activity on the network. And equally, the unplanned works on the network increased in 25-26 compared to the year before. And so from those, you would expect to see an increase, a decrease in satisfaction. And so on producing these figures, we've requested a deeper dive to understand how other behavioural factors may have improved the customer satisfaction figure that you can see there. So moving over to road safety. So you can see here that road safety data. So the KSI data is showing that overall KSIs have reduced. Unfortunately, fatalities have increased over the period, as you can see. And you can see there the monthly KSI performance against the average number of KSIs. So overall, encouraging 20% reduction in KSIs per head of the population compared to the national average, but increases in certain areas. So you can see increases in Coventry, Solihull, Walsall and Wolverhampton. One statistic which is particularly stark is that pedestrians account for 50% of all road fatalities in 2025, which is increasing compared to the 2 years before that quite significantly. On a more positive note, we have seen a 3.5 times increase in the processing of speeding offences. And finally, over to the safer travel data. The safer travel data has been provided there. You can see comparisons between the 2 years. Bus showing a decrease, rail showing an increase, but I would like to clarify that figure. I feel like there is a typo perhaps on that bullet point, but I will return to the group with clarification. And the metro showing a decrease in crime. Year to date, all over a 2.4 increase. In terms of violent crime, we've seen a reduction. In terms of public order, an increase. But very encouragingly, especially for the work of the safer travel team, we saw Paul earlier, is a 31.7 decrease year on year on antisocial behaviour across the network. Okay, those are the sources, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, loads of hands have gone up. I just want to say before I call people, it's really nice to see that we're now comparing the relevant quarter in 24-25 with the relevant quarter in 25-26, because I think that gives a better picture and something this committee has asked for previously. Yeah. Right, I'm going to call Councillor Lau first, then Councillor Hyatt, then Councillor Davis, then Councillor Kay.
Thank you. So when we present the report, we give a lot of percentages, but that could be sometimes doesn't give you the true picture, because really we want to know how many people you could solve them and break down the number of people or the percentages, because you're having a small sample, and that sometimes don't give you clear how many people you have, you know, who have experienced or give you the adverse results.
Yeah, in relation to
and also the capacity with the fatalities. Do we know what causes these fatalities? Mostly passengers here, but do we know what the reason behind it? And also, I think thirdly, I would say would be some benchmark against other major cities, other transport authorities, how we compare ourselves with compared to other.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think all of those are fair enough. We can certainly look to include more numbers as well, rather than just the percentages for those two areas. So just to clarify, that is in relation to the road safety and the crime.
And the satisfactory.
Okay. Yeah. In terms of the KSIs, there are quite a number of different reasons for collisions and fatalities, but the one, as you saw pulled out there with pedestrian fatalities, is particularly worrying to us. We do have a range of other categorisations of fatalities, but that is the one that is increasing. And as you can see, especially when you compare it to 23, it is very significant. So we continue to look into this. We continue to have our road safety action plan. We welcome the government's road safety strategy, which we'll get a briefing as requested earlier in this meeting. Over to you.
I think, Councillor Lau, is that if we ask the Road Safety Commissioner for the West Midlands for his views and comments on these issues, particularly the very concerning issue about pedestrians being more likely to be care size, almost doubling in 2 years, together with the road safety strategy as indicated, we asked for, and then ask to be circulated to this committee, because it's 2 months before we next meet in March, and it's such a crucial issue. So Lindsay, after this meeting, will contact Matt McDonald as the Road Safety Commissioner and ask for an update on all those, because I think they're very, very valid points.
My question was on the same point.
Yes, of course, Councillor Davis.
I just wondered if perhaps if we're seeking those comments, can we get a comment on the type of vehicles involved? Because one of the potential reasons electric vehicles are considerably heavier than diesel or ICE cars. So if a pedestrian is hit by an EV car because of the weight of the batteries, the damage inflicted at lower speeds is higher than it is for an internal combustion engine car. And that may be one of the factors considering. I don't know if we collect the data on what type of vehicles are involved in this, but if not, can we look at that and perhaps get the Road Safety Commissioner's question as well?
And indeed, Councillor Davis, quieter than a normal combustion engine. So pedestrians who might hear a combustion engine might not hear, I don't know, an electric vehicle because they are quieter. So I think that's a very, very good point. Thank you. Councillor Hyde.
Chair. I think with respect to Ring Road, the better phrase might be at this point demand without stripping supply, because that was something that was said to me during our meetings about Ring and Ride. You know, it was because of driver shortages and demand continues to outstrip supply. Again, I would love trend lines. I love the comparison of the 2 quarters. You can see the increase and decreases. Trend lines would allow us to understand how typical that increase or decrease was. I've flagged it up before. I've shared how we do it for Wolverhampton Homes. And Wolverhampton Homes is superb because it's benchmarks. You can see targets. And also, you know what 100% equals. And that's an easy thing to put on any data set, is to let us know the significance of the percentages by just letting us know what 100% equals. And according to my postbag, and I don't know if this is right or not, but it depends where the road, it depends where Severn Trent or the the electrical choose to dig up the road, whether it's a busy road or one that's used often, as to how bothered people are about it, really. And I've got one on a bus route behind me, and I don't know how the bus company is going to get around it, because that's going to cause a huge increase in the mailbox that I've got. So I think it's where, going to my mailbox depends where the roadworks are as to how bothered people are about it. And even if it goes all the way across, if it just causes a little bit of a disturbance. I mean, you will know less than I anyway. Thank you very much for the report. It was a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to see your Wolverhampton report. That'd be really useful if you wouldn't mind sharing it with me. Apologies, I haven't seen it. And absolutely, yeah, depends on.
It's not a report. It's just emails in my inbox.
Yeah, sorry, the way that it's laid out that you mentioned.
Yeah, Wolverhampton House one, definitely. Yeah, I think it's the best one I've ever seen.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, and the final councillor indicating to speak is Councillor Kate.
Thanks. There's public concern about fires on privately owned e-scooters. I'm wondering how regularly we inspect our e-bikes and scooters, carry out documented safety inspections, and particularly with looking for damage or corrosion of lithium batteries, which might be a fire risk.
Thank you. I personally don't know. I know for sure that there is a schedule because that's built into the contract and I've been involved in that in the past. I don't know the exact specifics, but I could get that for this group. Thank you.
Okay, councillor Kettle.
Just like to make a point, if I may, Mr. Chairman, and that's concerning, pedestrians' behaviour. And when we're talking about a wider perspective of something like 150 billion journeys a year across our area, pedestrian behaviour where they wear very dark clothing at night, you can't see them at the top. You're just going through the darkest time of the year. And on a wet, dark night, someone walks past you in dark clothing, you do not see them from behind a screen. And the old idea of advertising, wear something bright at night, stop wearing earmuffs and earphones at night, keep off the mobile phone while you're walking across the street. These simple things, I think it's a lesson we've forgotten, and wearing something bright at night would help an awful lot of drivers and save an awful lot of fatalities, especially this time of year. Also, I will mention, let's admit it, the modern headlights are causing one heck of a problem for the driver. You know, early this morning, I went down a road. I got to concentrate on one lane because I was being blinded by the continuation of the modern headlight coming against me. So there are aspects in here. All fatalities are a great sadness to us all. We need a wider perspective and we ought to address pedestrian behaviour, I think. That's the point I'm trying to make, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I think I see them more as comments rather than a question, but thank you very much for raising that. And as I say, I think the whole committee will be very interested in the views and comments of the Road Safety Commissioner for the West Midlands. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Claire. Moving on to item 9, and I would ask members to be brief because we do have a substantive item in terms of 10 and 13, which is laid out because it contains commercially sensitive information. So in terms of scrutiny champions for the MEX, does anyone want to flag anything up from their relevant MEX? Councillor Hyde?
It's very important to the recommendations made, which you can see right at the very, very top. You don't even have to look all the way down to see what happened during the meetings because the recommendations are right at the top of the page, which was increased money on education because we've only got one education officer, and increased money for partnership working. There was a negative BBC report on bikeability, which is not true. It's not a good reflection of bikeability really across the West Midlands. There's so many positive stories that could have been said instead of, but the success of bikeability and the millions of pounds of active travel funding that are dependent on the success of bikeability is underpinned by wider proactive measures in the active travel landscape. And it's that sort of software, it's called org-wearing software. It's that sort of education and promotion and lowering the barriers to participation, which that request is for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, can I thank all scrutiny champions and the committees for all their work that is undertaken and for provoking such interesting discussions at the relevant MEX. Okay.
Chair, sorry.
Yes.
I would just like to echo those thanks as well. Some really valuable insights from the work of the MEGs, and I really do appreciate the contributions that you make within those respective MEGs and some of those recommendations that have emerged.
And on that point, Councillor Davis, have you been appointed to a MEG yet?
I hope not.
No. Would it be worth Councillor Davis taking on Councillor Millard's spot? It's a thought. I'll leave that one with you, John. Okay. Right. So item 10 is the public report on the strategic fleet from Matt Lewis. welcome Matt. I know members have flagged they wanted to raise confidential issues under item 13. So can you take us through the public report first? And then hopefully we can agree the recommendations. And then I will just do the admin for items 11 and 12, and then we come back to the confidential report under item 13.
That works for me. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So just going through then the public document. So important really to set this in context of it being a high level paper. So this is the strategic direction we're trying to set that will then help us get into the detail as we move forward into the months and into the delivery of bus franchising. So the paper sort of starts with a reminder of the benefits of fleet ownership and to sort of repeat those. Two really key benefits. One of them is how it helps with competition. So a bus has a useful life of between 15 and 20 years. Our contracts will be for 5 to 7 years. So making that fit if the operators buy fleet is quite difficult. They'd either have to have certainty of redeployment in another area after the contract ends, or effectively they'd have to resell on, and none of that really is efficient for us. So taking ownership helps with competition. So any operator from anywhere in the world can come and bid for contracts in our area because we've got fleets and we can make it last in the right way. The other one, which was actually a key driver of the benefits, is access to borrowing is cheaper than the operators. So if we buy fleet compared to them buying fleet over the 40-year period, that takes quite a big role in releasing funding that can then go back into the bus network. So those are the two real components why fleet ownership is important. What we need to do, the three elements of what we need to do, we need to buy the existing diesel fleet that's out there today. We need to novate lease contracts. A lot of the new electric vehicles that you see have been purchased through lease contracts. So we need to novate those contracts. And we need to buy new fleet and set up a renewal program for fleet. And an important point there is the market does this already. So it's not really a new pressure on combined authority. The market is using its fares to continue to buy and renew fleet. Some challenges that are emerging, in some way this is not surprising. National Express investment in new fleet has slowed down as we've moved towards bus franchising, so some of these vehicles are older than we initially expected. On the lease side, that sets up the leasing vehicles set up quite well for a commercial entity. Some work for us to do to make sure there's value for us. And then the third component was buying new vehicles. And what we have said is that if we buy a new vehicle, it should be an electric vehicle. And we want to go forward with that as a principle. But there are some occasions where electrification of the depot might lag a little bit behind. So therefore, there might be some situation where we're buying a few diesel vehicles, and that's consistent and common with what's going on throughout the rest of the country. So Manchester, for example, have placed an order recently for diesel vehicles for the same reason. So just the principle is EV, but we're keeping open that view. And just to round off, so like I say, it's a high level paper. One of the asks is that we allow Sandeep to agree the programme case. The programme case will then sort of work into business cases for each of the three tranches of franchising. So in the summer, we aim to come to Combined Authority Board with a paper that says for tranche one, we need this many diesels from the existing fleet, transfer this many electric vehicles from the current lease arrangements, and to buy this many, and all that be wrapped around with a full business case with the financial analysis, etc. So that's an overview of what the paper is aiming to achieve.
Okay. Any questions on the public report? Councillor Kay, Councillor Hyatt.
We've been asked to consider acquiring this fleet of buses. That is not a fundamental part of the concept of franchising, and it's starting, well, from a financial point of view, as we will discuss later, it adds an order of magnitude to the risks that we're undertaking by going down this road. And on the finances alone, I'm against this proposal. But I think the greater consideration is that this is starting to look a lot like municipalisation, nationalisation. And this country has got a long history of nationalisation, which is synonymous with costs, inefficiency, delay, and industrial action. And I feel that we are now looking at moving the West Midland buses into a situation which is going to look a whole lot like the Birmingham bin service. Thank you.
The financial question we'll address in the private segment. What we're setting out here is exactly what was in the full franchising assessment. So this has been, it's been audited. This is what we set out. There's nothing new there. You are right. There are some more risks. The risks are largely mitigated through good contractual management. So we'll own the vehicles, but the maintenance of vehicles will be the responsibility of the operators, and there'll be a handover process if they're not well maintained. There'll be a charge on the operator for not well maintaining them. It's just not really. It's not really. I take your point. It's not really moving us to municipalisation. This is just going through what we said in the franchising assessment, and I'll bring back to where I started here about the benefits of doing that. So we'll be more competitive. So more bids should mean cheaper prices, higher quality, and like I say, our borrowing is cheaper. So those are the drivers, and they were really clear in the full franchising assessment.
Okay, Councillor Height.
Thank you, Chair. Rather than them ship out their best buses elsewhere, so we ended up buying their oldest fleet, can we not do a quick spot check, and then so that if they're going to give us the older fleet, we don't pay so much for, and then we know if it's economically viable, to do what we want to do. And then the other thing, can I just double check? When we own the fleet, were you saying that the maintenance of that fleet will be the responsibility of whoever we award the franchise to? So it won't come with increased employment costs for the combined authority?
Just coming back on that. I mean, we're quite lucky in our area in terms of National Express. They only operate in the West Midlands, so they aren't looking to move fleet around the network. And you'll all know that we're currently providing significant grant for operators, so we've got some controls over that anyway. So it's not a situation where we'll be buying any bus. We're currently about to go through the process of inspection of all the vehicles. If a vehicle's too old, if a vehicle's not in great condition, there'll be no benefit in us buying it ultimately. And we'll be paying market price for them. It's not, so that should control that element. On the maintenance side, you are right. So the bus operators will continue with the responsibility of maintenance. Our role will change though. So we will have to ensure that they are complying with maintenance. So we'll be doing regular inspections. So again, this was clear in the full franchising assessment. There is a component where our resources increased a little bit because we're doing those inspections to make sure maintenance happens. So we don't get to 5 years into a contract and find out they've not really been maintaining them. So there's a small increase, but all that was accounted for within the financials.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Clements, Councillor Lowe, and then Councillor Alden.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to check my understanding, because is the rationale for this similar to to that for the acquisition of the depots, that unless we do this, we're unlikely to get a good range of bidders? Because I mean, we're in a situation where we've had effectively a monopoly provider in National Express. If we want other people to come into what will still be a bus market, we need to make it easier for them. Because if you look at the cost of like one of the like Platinum buses, that operate in Birmingham, which are compliant with our clean air zone, I think that goes into the millions. They are extremely expensive. Buses, and not I imagine that some of the smaller operators would struggle to acquire them. I mean, I think that we've got to see the whole picture here, haven't we? Because we are trying to achieve objectives about air quality, reducing emissions, and it's really important that we use the policy levers that we've got in place. And as regards Councillor Kay's comments, there's a number of us in the room that actually very anxious to see the implementation of the new Bus Services Act and exploration of the possibilities of municipalisation and having a publicly run bus company. Because I think, again, like some of the comparators with other European countries would show that publicly run and public operated public transport systems, have evolved greatly in the last 30 years. I mean, I in fact was a commuter on British Rail in the London area in the 90s before before rail privatisation, and I feel that actually a lot of what's said about British Rail pre-privatisation is not accurate if you actually used it on a regular basis like I did. It was cheaper and much easier to navigate with ticketing and so on. So I'm glad to get the update on this report that's going to the board. And I think it's important for us to ensure the success of franchising, where I continue to have frustrations about the length of time it's taking, which I'm sure the officers must share as well. And I very much hope that we're going to take up the options to look at full public ownership and operation of the system at a later date, because my understanding is that franchising does not close down that route. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clements. Matt?
Yeah, just to come back on those 2 points, I'll start with your last one. So nothing in this paper moves us closer towards municipalisation than anything set out in the FFA, and nothing closes it down either. So that can play out. If there is a political movement to allow that to happen, that can still happen. If there's no desire to do that, we're not moving it any further forward. So that will play out outside of this ultimately. In terms of your point around the competition side, like I said, that is a big driver. So if you're an operator, one of the big five, you could probably get hold of some vehicles, and when our contract ends, you might be able to redeploy them. But if you're a new operator up and coming, or someone else from around the globe with new innovations, new ideas, you would have to buy some vehicles and hope you can redeploy them where you don't operate anywhere else, or put the entire 15 to 20 year cost into the 5-year contract, which would make it uncompetitive. So effectively, you'll get less bids, the innovation won't happen, the cost will be higher, and the quality will be worse because of that ultimately. So in us doing this, we create more competition to get those benefits ultimately.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lau.
Thank you. Somebody who grew up equivalent at school, the buses were owned by Birmingham Council, City Council, and they were more reliable. And things only can get better. That's what we have at the moment. I personally feel that the privatisation of a bus has worked for many people. I mean, when I was at school, I had the snow was up to knee depth, and the buses were still running. What happened over the weekend? When the buses were still running when I was at school in the 70s, why are we having to stop all the buses running now? So it's the difference you could make now. I think by having the public ownership of public transport will benefit the public. So that would be in the interest of the public, not for the shareholders. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to reply to that?
Well, like I say, I don't think it's for me to get into the debate about municipal transport. What I would say is we already today, our contracted services, so our tendered services, outperform the commercial services. So us moving all of these into contracts should get the improvements we're looking for ultimately.
Okay. Even more members have indicated to speak. Councillor Lord.
Thank you. Couple of points. I mean, I have a number of things to say on the private section, but sticking to what's on the public report. So recommendation 3 says that trusts and transforming city regions funding will be used for this. So what projects are being dropped to repurpose that money for the use of this? On number 7, it says that if borrowing's needed, it will be used against the fare box. What else is the organisation borrowing against the fare box, so we can have a full understanding of what the liabilities are going to be against those fares? And on the executive summary, 1.4 says, wait, you want me to pick up those first?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So effectively, this is all being considered within the Rosewell review ultimately. So it shouldn't be a case that one project's pushed out while this is pushed in. There's been, there's been a long time consideration in terms of the capital required to help with this. So I don't think it I don't think it is push one out, push one in.
I think the point is if you're doing one, you can't do another one.
There's
So-
certainly an
and-
opportunity cost.
Yes.
Certainly an opportunity cost.
And the fact that there's many more schemes that have gone for review in the Rosewell review than there's money for. So it's a question in Rosewell of prioritisation. So I think Councillor Alden's question is, if you
Prioritised.
if this is being prioritised, what isn't being prioritised as part of the Rosewell review? And perhaps that could be picked up, if not now, afterwards.
Yeah.
I think Sandeep,
If I may, Chair, I think the conversation around the Rosewell review is something that we probably need to pick up separately. There's a whole
Right.
body of work that's gone into that, and it wouldn't be fair, or would it do it justice to have a quick chat about it now? When we talk about prioritisation, it is not purely done on the financial asks, it is done against the benefits those projects bring to a whole range of objectives that we are trying to achieve here in the West Midlands. So that, you know, there is a lot of detail and some evidence-based approach around the prioritisation process. Happy to pick that up as a separate conversation. I suppose that the key thing is here is trying to make sure that we are looking at this in the round. It's not being looked at in complete isolation to the wider funding mix that we are considering as part of transport overall.
okay, thank you for that. And then you wanted to come
Yeah,
to another point.
and I will just, I think, I'll be blunt, I think that's a very secretive answer. Wasn't actually passing any comment as to whether this is the best use of the funding or not. It's a simple question of if we're not doing this, we're not doing something else. And I think that's actually something which is actually just capable of being answered, and trying to be around the bush and avoiding saying what it is, I think is probably not the actions of an open and transparent organisation. I wanted to pick up as well under the executive summary. 1.4 says that the combined authority will be starting from 2027, getting 90 new buses a year, says around, or so on average, and by 2036 that all of the existing diesel fleet will have been fully replaced. But there are more than 810 diesel buses, so that won't, by those numbers, that won't happen by 2036. So which of those is wrong? Is it we're buying more than 90 replacement buses a year, or is it going to take longer than 2036 to replace them all?
Just to come back on that one, I mean, what we're saying here is we have electric vehicles already, we have a number of electric vehicles already. More of the, up until the point that we move into franchise, National Express has commitments to take on more of them. So this is around the balance. Those electric vehicles are new. There's lots of diesel vehicles. I think this could be perhaps better written to say the diesel estate will be replaced in that period.
Okay, Councillor Akhtar and then Councillor B.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Matt. I hope you guys can hear me. Chair, I'm very sad and upset that what Councillor Kay said, and you haven't challenged him, and it really annoys me that we got through this whole process, and every one of us know that our bus service whole network is broken. And if you're going to take about nationalization or privatization, then I just only say, look at the example of water companies pumping sewage in our waters and taking, and their greed is killing the industry and our economy and passing on the money to foreign shareholders. Once again, the bus network is broken, and I understand, I'm not going to mention, there are people in your group, they want to fail this system. For God's sake, we are in a serious trouble in our country. We are trying to dig out our country, our public services, and I'm grateful to our officers. Chair, I'd like to inform you, one of your colleagues said to me, and I'm not going to mention him, I will mention him when he's there. He said, our officers are not capable of delivering franchising system. And my reply to him was, Manchester done it. Are their officers supermen or women? So shame on you guys. You should be helping officers and standing together, all of us, to make this work for our communities and for our economy. Now, Matt, sir, on depots, you talk about electrification. Is it possible, just in few minutes, you can explain us, where are we with those electrification? I know Coventry done a lot of work on it, and we know you also, Pete Bond and you guys are negotiating with them on the lease, because we own the freehold, you see, in Coventry. Sorry, I have a bit of headache. Now, please, if you can tell us that. And also, the government, as my understanding, I read an article in Public Sector Network, they allocated a £3 billion boost for better buses. And no, sorry, £3 billion and £3 million bus franchising funding. Hopefully that should help us, isn't it?
Okay, before I call Matt in to answer those, one of my roles as chair, as you know, Councillor Akhtar, is to facilitate debate from all members of this committee, whatever strands of opinion they might wish to mention, and to ensure that all members who have indicated to speak actually get an opportunity to make their views and their comments known. It's not for me as chair to shut down debate. And while I have my own personal
Rubbish,
views,
I'm not asking you to shut down the debate. I'm asking you to put an alternative view, which I think a chair should do. Even,
interrupt you. My job is very specific as chair. You've had the opportunity to make your comments. I'm not going to pass judgment on them, but I will ask the officer to respond to the points you have made on the depot acquisition. Matt.
Thanks, Chair. So in terms of electrification, so 4 of the 9 depots are either fully electrified or partially electrified. And again, we're working on the programme to electrify the other 5. Warsaw's going to be an important one as it links in with the sprint vehicles. So there's a programme of works that is working through that as we speak. And again, that will be aligned as closely as possible to the tranches of bush franchising. So hopefully that answers that one off. In terms of the funding question, I'm actually not aware of the funding from government of 3 million. I know they are trying to do a lot to support smaller areas in moving this forward. So I'm assuming that it's more closely aligned to that, or it might be that Pete is aware of something. But I can take that one away and come back.
If you could take that away as an action point and come back to all members of the committee. Councillor Bing.
Thank you, Chair. How will the strategic fleet remain adaptable to emerging technologies?
Yeah, that's a really good question that others asked me last week. So if technology has moved really quickly in this space, and actually a question I got asked last week is, will electrification be, is that the future? Will it be a different type of power that we move to? What we'll be doing is every year we'll be ordering around about 90 buses. So as things move on, we get a chance to pivot and change every year. If we buy an electric vehicle, we've got to keep that going for 15 to 20 years, but that's the nature of these things. But we aren't committing on day one to buy 1,400 vehicles that we might need to replace. Interestingly, some other areas are not 1,400 because they're not as large as us, but Liverpool buying all their franchise launch. So every year we'll get a chance to assess what's going on with technology so that we can pivot and change to it.
Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chair. So you said there was going to be a small number of diesels kept. Will we be looking at something like that as a kind of an emergency measure if we have, say, Walsall Depot gets wiped out by a power cut, none of the buses have been charged up, we need to run something. Will there be a kind of fail-safe fleet or a few kept for that kind of emergency?
So there won't be a fleet of diesel vehicles in waiting for the electrics to fail. That just wouldn't be affordable or efficient. But in every case, there's always excess fleet to manage situations like that. What we get the benefit of it through bus franchising is we manage the network as a whole. So if one depot has an issue, we'll be able to react to that from the whole of the fleet rather than what operate having 10 vehicles and it's not working. So there's still a little bit of work to do in terms of that. But yeah, I think bus franchising gives us a better opportunity to manage it better.
Councillor Nicholas.
In an effort to keep the politics out of the situation that we're facing, this is developing or helping the combined authority develop policy for bus travel in the West Midlands. So I'm interested, we're being asked to agree to a number of recommendations. I'd like to understand what happens should we agree or otherwise to the recommendations. What is the next step for us, for the combined authority, for the Rosewell report, etc.?
Okay, well, let me try and answer that, and if I need help, I'll ask Dan. My understanding, item agenda 10, this is the papers for the WMCA board. So the recommendations are those of the board and not from this committee. But as we've all...
May I come back on that particular point?
Yeah, sure.
If they are the decisions of the combined authority, what is our role?
Because this paper is going to the board on Friday, as we always do, any transport related reports of significant interest, it's there for us to discuss it as a committee and for me to feed back the views of the entire committee, and Lindsay will be typing up a report afterwards reflecting the discussions that we've had for me to go to board as an observer and to make those views known. So in that sense, I very much welcome the range of views and discussions that we're actually having at this moment in time. But the paper, I think, is quite clear, item agenda 10, that this is a board report. So it's not for us to agree or disagree with the recommendations, but to make comments in terms of our oversight and scrutiny role to the board. Correct, Dan?
Okay. In which case then, in the light of one member's clear opposition to this proposal, how do you intend to take our views? Are you intending to take a vote?
I wasn't intending to take a vote, but as I said, to reflect the range of discussion, which is why Lindsay is typing up a note for me to take to the board on Friday. As I say, reflecting this overall discussion. And of course, Matt will be presenting the report at board. So he's also heard the views of all members, whether they're the views of Councillor Kay or whether they're the views of Councillor Akhtar.
Chair, we haven't had the opportunity to discuss this in private.
Yes.
I'll hold my remarks until then.
Okay, that's helpful. Councillor Hyde, because I'm keen to get into private session, if that's okay.
Can I say then, I mean, I didn't chip in my full pen over municipal, bus thinking, because it's an apolitical, discussion forum anyway. But I wouldn't want Councillor Kay's comments to have undue significance.
Absolutely.
And therefore, should I chip in just to create that balance? Because, it's his personal opinion, which you could argue has no place in an apolitical forum. And I'd be wading in saying, yes, I'd love us to go towards municipality for so many different reasons. And my personal opinion wouldn't be reflected because I haven't voiced it. So should we be voicing our opinions far more?
Well,
So that one person's voice doesn't have undue significance.
let me be quite clear, Councillor Hyatt, and I think Matt will hopefully back me up on this. This is not a report about municipalisation.
No.
This is a report about the strategic fleet. So what I aim to do at board is to reflect while it's always interesting to hear members' views on municipalisation, either for or against, I think it's quite clear that I will keep my comments relevant to the subject matter of the actual report.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Clements.
Yeah, Chair, I wanted to say I think we shouldn't labour this too much because I welcome the opportunity to have sight of this board report in advance of the board meeting and for us to exercise an element of pre-decision scrutiny, which last year was sadly lacking because of the difficulty in coordinating with the board meetings and at that stage the cancellation of a lot of the board meetings. So I think actually sometimes we seem to have a difficulty in defining what we're here for, but actually what we're doing at the moment is that pre-decision scrutiny and allowing you to take some views on the substantive matters in the report to the board. And I think the debate that we have as politicians about ownership and operation of buses, I mean clearly we've got different political and philosophical positions about that, and I trust the officers to capture that appropriately in any minutes, and for you to, as you always do in your role as the chair, to reflect the comments on the matters raised in the report and the recommendations. So I feel comfortable about that because I feel that you're an expert chair with years of experience of doing scrutiny, and I think as a committee we need to focus on what actually our role is as scrutineers. We're not the executive, we're there to scrutinise and hold the executive to account. Thank you.
Okay, agreed. Excellent. Right. So in terms of the strategic fleet report, I don't think anyone else has indicated to speak in public session. So holding that over, item 11 is the work programme. And I think that's for noting only. Item 12 then is the exclusion of the press and public. So if I could formally move the exclusion of the press and public in accordance with section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, which means I'm afraid, Albert, Richard, thank you very much for coming today and goodbye.